Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's Teach It Forward webinar. I'm very excited to lead this session on getting creative with Gradient. My name is Aaron. I work for GradeCam, and we have with us our presenter today. Her name is Terry. She's going to tell you all about herself and how she and her colleagues use Gradient at their school. And so we're very excited to have her. What you see on your screen below Terry's picture there is a bit.ly link that you are welcome to type into your browser. If you are joining us right now, that typing in that bit.ly link is going to give you access to this slide deck so you can see what Terry's talking about, get all of our helpful links, and be able to follow along. And so the way this is going to work is I'm going to pass it off to Terry. She's going to tell us a little bit about how she started using Gradient, what she and her colleagues are doing, and some of the bigger picture lessons they've gleaned from their use of Gradient. And then at the end, when she's done presenting, we'll have some time for folks to ask some questions. We'll do a little bit of Q&A, whether that's in the chat or if you want to stick on, we can ask questions afterwards. So if you have any questions, I do have also my colleagues, Caitlin and Katie, are joining us today. So they are here to help answer your questions in the chat. If you have any, feel free to post them. They're waving right now. So feel free to throw those into the chat if you have any questions. And I will be back once Terry is done presenting. But Terry, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and take us through what you have for us.
Okay, hello everybody. Hello from sunny California. Not sure where you are, but it's a very nice day here for us. So a little bit about myself. First and foremost, you can see on the screen, I am an avid dog lover. As you'll see, my little Boston Terrier, Paka, just turned 1, and Lola is my 5-year-old Cocker Spaniel, and they are my best of besties. I work at a school named Los Altos High School. It is in Northern California, situated between, I'll say about an hour south of San Francisco and about 45 minutes north of San Jose. A little bit about myself and how I got started with using Gradient. I've been teaching Spanish for about 30 years. I'm a nationally certified teacher of Spanish, and I've always been involved and loved and interested in technology and making technology work for me. I've received several grants for the use of implementation of technology, as well as recently I just completed my certification to be an online blended learning instructor. I work at a Los Altos High School. Let's see, my slide is not wanting. Oh, there. I work at Los Altos High School. A little bit about my school. It's a public high school, and we have about 2,300 students. According to the Public School Review, we are in the top 5% of the schools in California. About 65% of our school are minorities, and we generally have a class ratio of 23 to 24 students per teacher. So it can go as high as about 30 students per teacher, depending upon the section in the day. So that's a little bit about the school where I work. And of course, if you have between 130, 140, 150 students, you're always looking for a way to make your life a little bit easier. I first became involved with GradeCam back when it first came out, and the whole reason I chose GradeCam, I want to say it was around I don't know, 2015-ish, somewhere around there, is I wanted to get rid of those darn Scantron that you might see there on the screen. At that time, I was a department coordinator, and each one of those Scantrons cost us about 10 cents each. So I was looking for a way to not only make my life a lot faster and easier, I wanted to get rid of that cost that was a big cost for our department, because at that time we did a lot of multiple choice type tests, discrete answer testing. And so I chose at that time to buy and pay for GradeCam for myself so that I could test it out and see what was going on. Also, another thing I could say is that I picked GradeCam because I was tired of standing in the long line to send those little Scantron machines or papers through our machine, because we only had one for our whole entire school. So if you can imagine every teacher wanting to put their 100 plus Scantrons through, anytime there was a final, there was a long line that you had to wait. Then after that happened, I'm going to say that around 6 years ago, my district started looking at GradeCam because they realized that that could be a money saver for our whole school. And so they started looking at it as a district-wide adoption, and I became one of the selected teachers to work in that cohort. During that time, we worked closely with some other Gradient employees to give them feedback, and one of the things that we gave, or I gave as feedback, was that I really wanted to see some kind of handwriting recognition. And as a foreign language teacher, one of the things that I really wanted to see is I wanted to see recognition of, the special punctuation, or in this case, accent marks. And so I was pretty happy at one point that I got finally the handwriting recognition, but the accent still hasn't come. So how do you think out of the box? And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, that I wanted to use or have a quick way for me to give quick feedback to students, whether it be something that they would get just as formative feedback, or as a more summative idea. So here is a quick look at what my students might do for a verb conjugation. In levels 1 or 2, we might do this once or twice a week, maybe once for a formative and maybe once as a summative. And you can see here I have 6 answers. Sometimes I have 5 answers. And it's a quick way for them to find out, how they're doing. And post-COVID, coming back into the classroom, this has been something that our teachers have really relied upon, because during COVID, learning to conjugate a verb was not something that students really worked carefully on. So if we look here, some of the things that I like about this is that up in the upper left-hand corner, you can do something where it just says verb conjugations 1. You can just do the level, the class period, where it says, 2H-7, that's the class period. So I can have varied quizzes or tests that I give to very quickly to different periods of the day, so the answers aren't out there. Some other things that you can do that are really nice is this is actually a quiz where I'm wanting students to focus in on the present, the preterite, the imperfect. So I want them to bring all of those things together so I can actually do those small headings. And it does look very small on the screen. That is true. It also looks small because what I do oftentimes is in an effort to save paper, I'll print 2 answer sheets on one. So my students are very used to this, so it's not a big deal. But at the very top, the first little pink line says present, the next one says preterite. Then you'll notice that inside of my words, you might find, oh, why does she have letters there and then she has a number? What I have found is that a way for me to get student feedback quickly is to think out of the box and use a number in the place of where an accent might go. So my students are very accustomed to writing the word, and they place the number 8 before the letter that requires the accent. So that tells me they know that that I needs an accent. So again, this in the very beginning, this was my workaround for how do I get accents in place. And I still use this, especially in the lower levels, to do those quick verb kind of like check-ins to give them a quiz, and you'd be surprised how quickly students will say, oh, I better study those verbs because I don't want to have another low score. So it's been a really lifesaver for me and great feedback for the students as well as for parents. If I move on, because that's not the only thing, I mean, I would say that GradeCam, a lot of people would say very good for the multiple choice type answers. Then as I started working with my course team, we had started to use rubrics prior to COVID. We didn't have a lot of, I'll say, agreement or our work of like how did we apply the rubric was not really calibrated, and so we had a hard time. So my next thought was, how do I put my thinker on and how do I think out of the box so that we could get some data that would help us understand how to apply effectively the rubric, but also, how are the students moving forward, not only in my class, but across the course team. So the next thing that we looked at was, okay, here's our rubric. How can we turn that into an assignment that GradeCam might help us grade, right? And one of the things that I hate is I hate rubrics because I hate doing the math. I hate adding up those numbers. I hate trying to figure out what it all means. So if I look at this, I've created an assignment, an observational assignment. You'll see on the left, there's all of my students. You'll see on the right-hand side, I have my comments as they were giving their presentation. You'll also see some different color coding, some different things that I use to help me remember what happened. And also, helps me as I look back how the student has progressed. Again, thinking about each one of those lines is one of these categories that's on the rubric. Sometimes I will have all of the categories or all of the tasks there, or in this particular case, I only chose to work on 3 of them. So the students get that rubric at the beginning of the year, they have that, and they know that, okay, Senora is just going to give me, a 1 through a 5 on those particular items. At the top, I will remind myself generally what I was looking for, what I was focusing on in terms of the language that I wanted or the structure that I wanted them to use. Also, I wrote there that it was a quick presentation. So that's going to remind me that they didn't have a lot of time to think about it, a lot of planning. So when the student comes back and says, why did I get a 4 versus a 5? I have that as a reference. So none of that writing that I put there, other than the numbers within the little boxes, are picked up by GradeCam. So you can really make this document work for you. The next thing that I want to look at, you'll see that I have different groupings, different shadings. Those all mean different things. Who was working together sometimes, or it might be in this case, it was which rubric the students were working on. So you'll see a gray, you'll see a blue, you'll see orange. Those are 3 different rubrics students have moved through the year. And all 3 of them have the same across the top here. All 3 of them have the same basic title, but what they need to do or how they need to respond, the skill level changes according to the coloration. So I know which rubric was applied to each of the students. And then you'll see here along the side, my notes in reference to how they performed according to their more individualized rubric. You'll see in the middle of the screen, there is a student in green. He has a different rubric. I have the AB there, he was absent. I have the yellow there. None of those markings will get picked up by the GradeCam when I actually scan it. And I generally scan these documents with my telephone. So none of that is picked up. That student, when I pass that grade on, will just have a blank. And in this case, I just went back and I put an NA there. So when I look at this, this has allowed us now as a course team to look at, numbers, to look at data when we're applying these rubrics, and it allows us to look at numbers, data, which is something that generally speaking, we don't have as language teachers, and especially don't have it when we're looking at specific skills in terms of rubrics. The use of this has also made it phenomenal because we don't have to add up those numbers. While they're small numbers, none of us like to add those numbers up. And at the end of the presentation, which might be, a few minutes, a few hours after the presentation, the students get this information and they can have a grade quickly, rather than me having to sit there and fumble through lots of pieces of paper. The other thing that I find, as I would call it, revolutionary, is that when I'm all done with this and I've scanned it, I can use that little magic wand, and this information will be transferred to my Aries. You can see right there the red, white, and blue A for Aries. That's our online grade book. One thing that Gradient has that other platforms do not have in terms of technology is that I can grade on Gradient. I can go through and make comments. I can change. I can assign specific tasks that the students need to do. I can give myself lots of notes there, but I can also, when I'm all done, I take the cursor, I put it in the student's box, and I hit F8, and all of those grades go directly into my grade book. So for me, I take my notes, which is something I would normally do. Gradient or GradeCam adds up those numbers, and I push a button and all of those scores go directly into my grade book. That to me is revolutionary, phenomenal, the best part about it, because it's less work for me. It's just literally a push of a button. So if I think about what GradeCam has done for me, my first tip would be, you have to think out of the box. You have to think, what do I want? What do I need? And that always changes. It could change daily, but it can also change from person to person. I'm also going to say, tip number one, think out of the box and don't judge a book by its cover. You have to identify what's your problem. My problem here in the beginning was, how can I grade those quick verb conjugation tests quickly? And I want to give them feedback. That's really important to me. And then, I've moved away from some of that. What's important to me now is the application and the use of rubrics. How can I get the students quick feedback? How can I get some data that I can compare with my course team? And then, as I'm thinking out of the box, I want to think, like, how can I make that product work for me? So, you define that problem, you figure out a workaround. In this case, it started out with the number 8. If I look at more of the observational assignments, I use some color coding. I switch up some language, that I make sure that the different kind of rubrics all have the same things, lining up in the same category. And voila, I have the same thing. I just attach the 3 rubrics to the back of my my score sheet, and the students have those in their hand. My tip number 2 or thing is that we found a quick fix for a real problem. Students needed information. Staff wanted information very quickly. And we were able to get those things into both students' hands and staff's hands as faster than fast. There's no math involved, which was great. And I think the last thing is, keep bending those rules and giving feedback, which I gave Gradient feedback from multiple times. This is not my first time speaking with the people at Gradient. But if we give them feedback, they're going to give us what we want. And in the end, we can get that meaningful data that our administrators are asking from us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Terry. There's an unbelievable amount of awesome information in your presentation. So many little things that I love you pointed out. things like on a question type like fill in the blank, being able to add a header to just give students that extra bit of information or instruction. I think that's such an underused feature in printing forms. So thank you for bringing that up. And I just want to check, Katie or Caitlin, do we have any questions in the chat? I noticed some things going up in there.
I was mostly just giving good ideas. And
Okay.
some other folks made some comments about things they really loved that were being shared.
Awesome. Yeah. Along those lines, I'd like to comment, just kind of thinking about your school's journey from where you started us at, you know, that waiting in that long line to get those tests scanned to where you are now. Not only the time you saved, but also the quantity and quality of the data you're getting from your students feels like it's shifted night and day. Can you talk a little bit about what that's been like for your team and your students?
Well, I think that for the students, they want the answers right now. And so sometimes I can, like the verb quizzes, I can actually scan it with my telephone right then and there. And they just get to keep that paper. And then I have the documentation right there. There's no question as did they change the answers or what have you. So they get those scores right, pretty much, you know, right after they hand in the paper. The thing that's been really game changer for us as a course team is as we move to the application more of the integrated performances, we needed to like use those rubrics. And of course, every educator is in a different spot. So as we are trying to calibrate that, we focus on 1 or 2 or 3 of those tasks. Now we can see, okay, this is what they did, but we can go back and look at how a student did last year versus this year. And this is how I graded this student last year versus, you know, another teacher grading this year. So you begin to see, you know, like we're calibrated, or no, we're way off, just like you might do if you were giving, you know, a regular multiple choice, you know, more discrete type of assignment. Those are much easier in a way because you get percentages and you can see, oh, number 2 was wrong. But now what we're seeing is that, oh, this is the skill level, or this is the area that we want to focus on next.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And it looks like actually we have a question in the chat, which is, do you have a favorite report that you use with your content team?
I can't say a favorite report.
Or is
No.
there maybe one that's like a go-to for you all where you kind of start off?
No, I think really for me, what it is that I'm the one that keeps pushing, like, let's use the same one, because everybody in my team is on in a different space. And so I feel like it's important to have that continuity, as every year you're working with a new course team, and we're talking about post-COVID. So right now we're working a lot with the observational forms. We're working a lot with trying to get that rubric use. So that's really where we're focused right now.
Awesome. Yeah, observational forms, I think, are another one of those awesome features in Gradient that aren't necessarily used as much. And you'll see on the screen right now, our question slide, our team's been adding in some links here so that all of these different things that Terry's been talking about today, like fill in the blank questions and observational forms, you got links to directly to our Help Center articles. So folks who are watching, if you're curious about any of those features, you want to check them out, we've got links here on the slide for you. And if there's no other questions, I'll go ahead and stop recording. And if folks still have questions, we can check in with them. But I just want to let everyone know who's watching. We have, if hopefully you've been getting some of your badges, we've been trying to reward teachers for using different parts of the app and kind of get to learn more about using the app, things like the hidden features Terry's been talking about. We also have resources here if you are interested in other Teach It Forward webinars we've had in the past. And also just want to, if you click on that picture, it will take you to our Teach It Forward page. But if you have any other questions, feel free to contact our team. All of our information is here. Anyone who registered will get a recording of this session automatically emailed to you. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you everyone for coming. If you have questions, go ahead and stick around. I'm going to stop recording and we can get to those.